Now, we'll start off with this one. Exposure to cell phone and Wi-Fi radiation can reduce impulse control and cause violence, says study. And this is something I've been writing about for a long, long time. How everything is a frequency, every emotion is a frequency, every thought is a frequency, every perception is a frequency. And just as these perceptions, emotions, thoughts generate frequencies, depending on the nature of what they are, so if you can pound that frequency at someone going the other way, you can generate that emotional thought, reaction, response. And this is a story about studies that have yet again confirmed that this is what's happening. And you know, I've quoted former DARPA scientists or DARPA operatives, DARPA being the technological development arm of the Pentagon, who have said they have identified the fact that from these broadcast towers and communication towers for cell phones, etc., there are frequencies being transmitted from them that are disrupting human thought and human awareness, the human brain. And just to show how this compartmentalization works, where you can work very close to something and not know the real agenda, at least one of them has said, I've been trying to warn DARPA that this is what's happening. Well, it's happening, mate, because DARPA wants it to happen. That's the whole point. You have to warn them. They know they've done it on purpose. So anyway, here's a bit more meat on that story. Some people, even President Trump, it says, have pointed fingers at video games for playing a role in behavioral, emotional, and mental imbalances, which can lead to unfortunate circumstances in addition to digital addiction. We have to do something about maybe what they're seeing and how they're seeing it, Trump said. I'm hearing more and more people say the level of violence on video games is really shaping young people's thoughts. Well, first of all, you're a president that believes in violence, so I won't take any lectures on violence from you, mate, to be absolutely truthful. But it's right on one level. Video games are desensitizing young people and children from violence and its true nature. But these studies go deeper than that. Research says that they aren't wrong about this, about the video games. In fact, even tech designers will tell you that games, apps, and other software are designed to deliberately affect our thoughts for many years now. And this is a really important point. Silicon Valley parents have limited their own kids' exposure to technology, and recently their concerns seem to have skyrocketed. You may have seen some stories on davidicke.com about this, how these people running Silicon Valley that are pushing and promoting and producing this technology don't let their children use it themselves. And they tell their nannies, they make contracts with the nannies looking after their children, that they mustn't have access to phones and that the nannies mustn't use the phones because they know what they're doing. And you know, if there is a definition of psychopath, and there are many, then it has to be people in Silicon Valley who are making this stuff, promoting this stuff, urging people to use this stuff, knowing the effect it's having on them to the extent they won't even let the children use it. I mean, that is psychopathy of some extreme degree. Anyway, the story goes on. All sources of cell phones and wireless Wi-Fi radiation exposure disrupt the blood-brain barrier, which can cause it to leak. Now, this is vital because the blood-brain barrier is what protects the brain from many toxins that can get in other parts of the body but can't get into the brain because of this barrier. Now, if you bring that barrier down, those toxins get in the brain and all hell breaks loose. It says this has been proven to affect impulse control as well as causing other health issues. And the International Association of Firefighters understands this. It's one of the reasons that California firefighters fought for an ordinance to not have cell towers and antennas installed on their stations. I mean, what has been happening is these buildings, like those, police and firefighters, etc., government buildings, council buildings, that the authorities control, they've been taking money from the big tech companies to put the cell phone towers, etc., and others on these buildings. And it's desperately, desperately dangerous to their health. And interestingly, Barry Trower, who worked in this radiation technology as a government insider for decades, who's now a real campaigner to alert people to what is happening and the dangers of this stuff. And one of the things he said once in an interview was that show me a police station with these towers on, or these broadcast transmitters on, and I'll show you somewhere that has become more violent than it was before, basically, because of the impact on the behavior of the officers who work in that environment, that radiation environment, the effect on their brains. And so it's not really a surprise, therefore, to find that the same thing is happening to the population. And if you want to agitate problems, problem reaction solution that you could then respond to and make changes to respond to, riots or whatever, then you pound this frequency out. And a long time ago, they worked out these frequencies. This is all in the books from a few books ago. They worked out the frequencies they had to generate to elicit particular emotional responses. So this is very, very systematic in terms of what's happening. And this is what the firefighters in California said. A pilot study was conducted in 2004 of 6 California firefighters working and sleeping in stations with towers. The study, conducted by Gunnar Hauser of California, focused on neurological symptoms of 6 firefighters who had been working for up to 5 years in stations with cell towers. Those symptoms included slowed reaction time, lack of focus, lack of impulse control, severe headaches, anesthesia-type sleep, sleep deprivation, depression, and tremors. Dr. Hauser used functional brain scans, SPECT scans as they're called, to assess any changes in the brains of the 6 firefighters as compared to healthy brains of men of the same age. Computerized psychological testing, known as TOVA, was used to study reaction time, impulse control, and attention span. The SPECT scans revealed a pattern of abnormal change that was concentrated over a wider area than would normally be seen in brains of individuals exposed to toxic inhalation, as might be expected from fighting fires. Dr. Hauser concluded the only plausible explanation at this time would be RF radiation exposure. Additionally, the TOVA testing revealed among the 6 firefighters delayed reaction time, lack of impulse control, and difficulty in maintaining mental focus, which of course is the last thing you want if you're in a dangerous situation fighting a fire. Dr. Neil Cherry, another investigator into all this, did a lot of research, the article says, on adverse effects from exposure to cell phones and wireless radiation. Some of his research concluded that exposure can also increase acts of violence and homicide, actual or potential effects of radiation enhancing violence and potential homicide, he said. Unfortunately, no matter how much Americans attempt to reduce their personal use and exposure to radiation emitting devices, our elected officials, federal agencies, and the telecom industry have other plans. They want to make sure that the US wins the insane race for 5G. They also want to turn all of our communities into smart cities. All that I've been writing about for years. This involves installing millions of 4G and 5G radiating small cell towers and related infrastructure pretty much everywhere, including in front of homes. This being said, none of us eventually will be able to escape the effects of new and increasing sources of exposure in our brains and the rest of our bodies, not least because they're sending satellites up to fire this stuff at every inch of the planet, as again I've been saying for such a long time, and here we are. So there's a lot of things that happen in the world that can be explained in terms of human behavior, individual and collective, and ill health, that can be explained by the effect of these towers pumping this stuff out all over the place. But there's been a number of stories this week along the same lines, because this is moving fast. Here's another headline: The Rise of Fascism in a Brave New Digital World. And they quote Aldous Huxley as in the article at the top, as I have in my book, of course, books. Aldous Huxley, the writer of the incredibly prophetic book, A Brave New World, which came out in 1932. But this stuff is projected so far into the future, much further than anyone can really even imagine. And there's reasons why they can do that. Anyway, this is what the quote from Huxley. There will be, in the next generation or so, a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude and producing dictatorship without tears, so to speak, producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies, so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it, because they will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods. And this seems to be the final revolution. It is the end game, that is for sure. This article goes on. We are watching Huxley's dystopian vision of a brave new world controlled by state-sanctioned addiction unfold right before our eyes, and true to Huxley's precedents, we rather enjoy it. The only surprise is that, well, I don't bloody enjoy it. The only surprise is that the operative pharmacological agents he warned about aren't delivered in pill or liquid or other physical form. Well, they are to some people. And we don't call them soma or heroin or crystal meth or crack. They're delivered in bits and bytes instead, and we call them media. And there's a list of facts which are very, very sobering. Consider this, it says. The average American household has only 2.75 people, but 3 TVs and 6 internet devices. The average American family spends more money each month on media consumption than on groceries or electricity. The average American consumes 12 to 15 aggregate hours of digital media per day. The average American child consumes more than 10 hours of digital media per day. The average American smartphone is checked about every 6 to 12 waking minutes. And 70% of Americans binge view. In other words, I guess they're always on the bloody phone. The jury, it says, is in, and the verdict is irrefutable, a pervasive and pernicious meta-addiction to all things media and all things digital has emerged over the past generation as a default condition of American life. We'll see the rest of the world increasingly. The rule rather than the exception. We are born into and live our lives in a completely immersive screen culture whose primary directive is to search for, find, and ingest media all day long, virtually every waking minute. We carry pocket-sized TV screens with us everywhere we go. Well, some of us don't. And more screens of various sizes greet us wherever and whenever we pause. We're at home, in our bedrooms, kitchens, or living rooms. At work, I have one television, and it's basically only turned on when the soccer's on, and even then, not all the time. At work, in elevators, reception areas, and atop every desk, on the road, in gas pumps, airline seats, taxis, airports and train stations, at play in bars and restaurants, in school, in the doctor's office, and just about everywhere else. Our kids are hooked on media before they enter preschool. Digital media shape and define our lives at every stage and in every possible way. We are, per media ecologist Neil Postman's seminal title, amusing ourselves to death, forever swapping electrons in a brave new digital world where none of us will soon be able to find or fashion context or meaning for our lives beyond the high-definition bits and bytes we consume virtually non-stop through our digital devices. Well, of course, addiction is what it says. It addicts people. And people with addictions of any kind obviously find it very difficult to break the habit. But, are we going to concede that our minds are not more powerful than what is addicting them? And the parents. I mean, this is the thing with this. This is the way it's done with parents. They don't want to upset their children. Most of them, anyway. They don't want to make them feel left out. So even though they know the damage, even those that have bothered to find out, that know the damage that this is doing to their children, the pressure not to have them left out so they don't have what their friends have is greater than the thing they know is the right thing to do, which is to dramatically limit the time they have on these phones. And when I was flying to Amsterdam to talk a couple of weeks ago, there was a lady, lovely lady, on the plane sitting next to me. She was going to some financial conference. We got talking, and it was fascinating. We talked about some of this stuff, and she was saying how she limits the time that her children can have on these phones, and is pushing back against this. But she said an interesting thing: I don't know how long I can hold out because of the pressure coming the other way from society in general to use this, and peer pressure and all the rest of it. But that's what's happening. What's happening is this digital web, this digital bubble is not only taking over the minds of people, its informational input is changing the way the brain perceives reality and changing the way the brain processes information. And I had a wry smile this week, really. It wasn't a chuckle, it was just oh, here we go. Because in the early 1990s, my early books on these subjects, I talked about the plan to microchip the population. Actually, it's much deeper than that, but on one level, to microchip the population. And of course, people found it funny and ridiculous and all the rest of it. And then I, of course, went to Sweden a few weeks ago now, to speak in Stockholm. And back in September it was, October, September. And 3,000 people in Sweden have been microchipped so far. And then this story came out this week. Alarm over talks to implant UK employees with microchips. Britain's biggest employer organisation and main trade union body have sounded the alarm over the prospect of British companies implanting staff with microchips to improve security. UK, it's not, is it? Not if you go deep in the rabbit hole, it's not. UK firm Biotech, which offers the implants to businesses and individuals, has already fitted 150 implants in the UK. The tiny chips implanted in the flesh between the thumb and the forefinger are similar to those for pets. Something else I wrote about years and years ago, decades ago now, when they started introducing microchips for pets. I said, this is just a stepping stone, totalitarian tiptoe, to doing the same to humans. It's just getting people used to them. Exactly what's happened. You know, if you do the research and you know, you're how do you say that word? Indefatigable. Yeah, indefatigable. In your effort, then this thing's an open book. What's being planned, and so predicting the future is becomes straightforward once you know certain things and uncover them. Another company, Biohacks of where else, Sweden, in terms of microchips, also provides human chip implants the size of a grain of rice. It told the Sunday Telegraph that it is in discussions with several British legal and financial firms about fitting their employees with microchips, including one major company with hundreds of thousands of employees. The CBI, this is the Confederation of British Industry, the employers' organisation, which represents 190,000 UK businesses, voiced concerns about the prospect. A CBI spokesman said, while technology is changing the way we work, this makes for distinctly uncomfortable reading. Firms should be concentrating on rather more immediate priorities and focusing on engaging their employees. The Trades Union Congress, the TUC, which is the amalgamation umbrella body for trade unions, the TUC is worried that staff could be coerced into being microchipped. Oh, that's not going to happen, is it? My God. Its General Secretary, Francis O'Grady, said, we know workers are already concerned that some employers are using tech to control and micromanage, whittling away their staff's right to privacy. Microchipping would give bosses even more power and control over their workers. That's the idea. There are obvious risks involved, and employers must not brush them aside or pressure staff into being chipped. Stephen Northam, the founder and owner of Hampshire-based Biotech, told The Guardian that most of the 150 implants have been for individuals, while some financial engineering firms have also had the chips implanted in their staff. You know, I mean, do these people that accept these chips have any, do they do any research before they put their arm out? It's unbelievable. Talk about lambs to the bloody slaughter. Another very connected story this week. Energy companies are charging households without a smart meter up to £150 more every year. So how much is not having one costing you? I don't care. Whatever it takes to not have one. They've been ringing around my area on the Isle of Wight. You know, hello, we're in your area, you're putting in these smart meters. When would you like us to come? A few seconds later, the guy put the phone down the other end. I think he realised he wasn't going to sell one to me. Anyway, and what I did, because I live in a block of flats, I ran off background information on the effects on health and other things of smart meters, and I put them outside every door. And the number of people that came back to me and said, I had no idea that this is what they did. So I hope they've not had any support in putting smart meters in anywhere around me. But the thing is, of course, is that they'll do it other ways. This is the process all the time. They introduce something. People say, "Hey, that's good. This, that's that, that's the other." Oh no, but it's not compulsory. No, you can say no. You don't have to be microchipped. You just have to, make a decision yourself. But that's just the stepping stone. Again, the totalitarian tiptoe to the point. What they do is they make life more and more difficult if you don't have what they want you to have. In this case, they charge you more. But in other cases, if you don't want to accept digital money, for instance, well, there's more and more places where if you don't have digital money, you can't buy anything. And same with all these things. So it's all a scam. And the idea of microchips is to have them compulsory eventually.